Stage 20 has but a single first category climb, Piancavallo, but an historic one that has altered the results of the race on more than one occasion, and which has been won by such cycling legends as Marco Pantani in '98, the year he completed the Giro Tour double. Piancavallo climbs more than 1,100 meters in just 14.5 kilometers, a grueling ascent by any standard. And if that's not enough, the race organizers are sending the riders up it twice. Who, I wonder, will be the last man standing. Meanwhile, we're stuffing ourselves with yet more wine and cheese, aren't we, James and Cinzia?
We sure are.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today is the final episode for this year's Giro d'Italia 2026 special series. The 3-week stage race is now in the high mountains, and the following days will determine who will be in the Maglia Rosa in Rome on May 31st. In the meantime, there are wines to sample and cheeses to enjoy. So joining me once again are James MacNay, IWA, and Cinzia Long, certified cheese expert, who will both share with us their expert suggestions for a wine and a cheese for each of the remaining tappe. James and Cinzia, we left off last week in anticipation of the race reaching stage 15. Since then, there has been considerable action, and the race is now poised to enter its final and decisive week. So let me first give a brief update of where the race stands now. The second week has had something for just about everyone. Filippo Ganna, the Italian darling and probably at present the best individual time trialist in the world, did what everyone expected. He easily won this year's race against the clock to take the honors on stage 10 for Team Netcompany Ineos. What was perhaps slightly surprising was that Jonas Vingegaard of Team Visma Lease Bike, the outright overall race favorite, finished only 13th, more than 2 minutes down on Ganna. A stronger than expected showing from the surprise wearer of the pink jersey from the first week, Alfonso Eulalia, meant that he managed to keep hold of the coveted jersey into the second week, though his lead was now cut down to less than 30 seconds. In the days that followed, into Liguria and across Piedmont, the Portuguese rider for Team Bahrain Victorious was able to do just enough to retain the pink jersey. He only relinquished it reluctantly on stage 14 when the race moved into the highest mountain. A grueling day of near non-stop climbing in the Alps of Valle d'Aosta. The route finished with the brutal ascent of Pila, a 16.5 kilometer climb that rose more than 1,100 meters. It was here that Vingegaard made a decisive attack, distancing himself from the chasing bunch and from Eulalia, who had, to the surprise of most, somehow managed to cling to the pink jersey for 9 days. Even so, the Portuguese battled bravely for his GC position, limited his losses, and now, going into week 3, still clings to second position in general classification. Stage 15, the last stage of week 2, was a dead flat route from Voghera in the Ultra Po Pavese of Lombardy to the outskirts of Milan. This was supposed to be a final chance before Rome for the powerhouse sprinters and their teams to fight it out for the sprinters' stage win. But oddly, the stage was neutralized close to the finish. Apparently the riders thought that the route was too dangerous because of road furniture, and so the expected bunch sprint did not happen. So, the race now enters the third and final week with Jonas Vingegaard, the red-hot race favorite, now wearing the Maglia Rosa with a lead of 2 minutes 26 seconds over Eulalia. Unless the unexpected happens, and that is always a possibility in the Giro, Vingegaard will be the victor in Rome. However, it would only take an off day in the mountains, illness, inclement weather, It can often snow in the final stages of the Giro for everything to change, though few expect it to do so. Perhaps a more intriguing subplot is whether Eulalio can do enough in the coming days to remain on the podium with a top 3 finish, which would be an amazing achievement for the young rider. Meanwhile, Paul Magnier of Soudal Quickstep wears the Maglia Ciclamino, but Jonathan Narvaez of UAE, who has already won 3 stages this year, is breathing down his neck. Will this be decided on the streets of Rome on the final day? Vingegaard is in the Maglia Azzurra, the King of the Mountains jersey, and barring a catastrophe will add that famous jersey to his palmares too, while Eulalio is now in the Maglia Bianca as the best young rider. And so the Giro resumes today with some mighty challenges ahead in the highest mountains of the Swiss and Italian Alps and the Dolomites. High mountains are not only a challenge for the riders, they are also a rich source of beautiful alpine wines and tasty mountain cheeses. So we have an exciting few days of exploration, James and Cinzia. How are you both today?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Mark. It's really good to be back with you. We very much enjoyed our conversations over the past 2 episodes of this very exciting Giro d'Italia.
And you're enjoying following the race as well?
We have, yep.
Yes.
We haven't been able to catch every stage because we've been busy looking after our own customers who are out on the trails in different parts of Italy.
Now, you're joining us today from Sardinia, is that right?
Yeah, we are. So we're here researching a new trip which takes us from the town of Bosa on the west coast of Sardinia to Palau, which is a small town, the gateway to the Maddalena archipelago on the east coast, taking in some fabulous winemaking regions and some lovely wines and cheeses as well.
Yes, I can imagine. Cinzia, I'm just wondering what your legendary picnic hamper would have in store for a Sardinian tour.
Yeah, so picnic hamper, definitely some in terms of cheeses, pecorini, un fiore sardo, which is a nice hard cheese, but also something maybe a little bit fresher. Here they have lovely stretched cheeses. It's like a panetta sarda, they call it, which it looks a little bit like a provolone, but softer, that they use it to cook as well. And they use it in the famous seadas. Do you know the seadas?
Is that a stuffed pasta, Cinzia?
It's a stuffed type of. It looks like a huge raviolo, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
sweet one. They put on
Ah,
top some honey, so they fry as well. They fry it and they put some honey and some orange rind on it. It's delicious.
oh, that sounds delicious.
It's delicious. Yeah.
James, what would be the wine to pair with seadas, I wonder?
Well, I would
Ooh.
probably go, if you wanted something sweeter, then how about a Vernaccia di Oristano, which is that
I was thinking that
wine?
as well, yes.
That would be just wonderful, I think, with something sweet like that. Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great tour you're putting together. And I'm just thinking, James and Cinzia, that this is all through MacNay Travel and Wine, and that listeners to this series who are enjoying the cycling and enjoying the wines and the cheeses could do just that with you, either walking or cycling holidays, taking in the wines, the foods, and of course the cheeses. That's really what you do, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So we design and run itineraries in the Italian wine regions, really, with a particular focus on wines and cheeses, and of course local cuisine. The bread and butter of our operation is self-guided hiking and cycling. So we look after the logistical side for our customers, book hotels, and give them hopefully accurate walking directions. We haven't lost anyone yet. But here, yeah, we don't do just that. We do organise some small group accompanied trips as well, which is what we're looking at here in
Yeah.
Sardinia.
Well, it's just the sort of thing I like myself, so I'll have to be
We'll see you
checking
on the
that out
trails,
too.
Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to the cycling then. Stage 16 takes us on a day trip into the Italian-speaking Swiss canton of Ticino. At just 113 kilometers, it's pretty short, but definitely a very grueling and hard day, with a final mountain ascent to Kari, or Kari, a brutal climb of 11.7 kilometers, nearly 1,000 meters of altitude at an average of 8%. I know from experience that that would be very leg numbing.
Mm.
Switzerland is not that well known internationally for its wines, James, mainly, I think, because the Swiss guard them absolutely jealously for themselves. But there's some beautiful examples to choose from. But the country is, of course, world famous for its wonderful range of Swiss cheeses. So I'm guessing you both have some real gems for us to enjoy today.
Yeah, sure is. So some Swiss wines that I've tasted have been absolutely superb. And they don't, you're right, Mark, they don't get enough coverage outside Switzerland. So in the canton of Ticino, Merlot is king. The great proportion of grapes grown there is Merlot. Um, my choice is coming from the southern area. The Ticino canton borders Italy at Lake Como and Varese, the town of Varese. So I'm going to stick close to that area in what they call the area called the Sottoceneri, where we have limestone soils, and the Merlot is warmer and softer. So yeah, that would be my choice. A nice warming, soft Merlot from the Sottoceneri.
Nice, nice.
So let's see, in terms of cheeses, I found very interestingly actually because I belong to the ONAF. The ONAF is what is called Organizzazione Nazionale Assaggiatori Formaggi, which is the organization with whom I did the course. But also in Ticino there is the ATIAF, which is the Associazione Ticinese Assaggiatori Formaggi. They've been going on for 20 years, which is quite interesting. And cheese that I would like to try, which I, to be honest, I never tried, is the Formaggio d'Alpe Ticinese, which is an AOP or a DOP in Italian, AOP for the French or the Swiss, which is a protected of origin cheese and is a cheese that can be made with 100% cow's milk or otherwise cows and maximum 30% of goat milk as well added to it. It's a full fat, semi hard cheese that is made in the high pastures. So we were talking last time or a few stages ago about these cheeses that they are made during the summertime in the high pastures and then they age as well in these mountain or alpine environment. So it can be quite fruity. It did remind me the description of a Comte as well. So it can be, has got this kind of hazelnut element, this kind of nutty element. And then when it gets aged, it's got more like this spicy or a little bit more, that just stronger flavor. But this is the cheese that I would put maybe with that nice red just to accompany.
Well, that sounds really good, and I'm imagining those mountain huts where these cheeses are made in the high alpeggi,
Mm.
as you described in Italy, but also in Switzerland. I'm imagining these might be places that an intrepid hiker could walk to, and perhaps in some cases might even be able to stay over. Is that possible?
Yeah, in some places, I believe it's possible. I don't know that area very well. You know, I come from Valle d'Aosta, so
I've had friends as well that have stayed in rifugi,
that's it.
where
Yes.
again
Yeah.
you can stay and eat and live very, very simply after a
Yeah.
long day's hiking, which would be a really nice way to explore the mountains.
Yeah.
Okay, we return into Italy's Lombardy for stage 17. The start's at Cassano d'Adda on the outskirts of Milan, and the route then climbs almost continually uphill up to the Pagnanella Plateau and the foothills of the Dolomites at Andalo, a popular winter and summer resort. We're now in the region of Trentino Alto Adige. This is another area with no shortage of wonderful wines, but I'm less familiar with the cheeses from Trentino Alto Adige. James and Cinzia, what shall we refresh ourselves with today?
Well, wonderful, wonderful Trentino Alto Adige, and especially those high altitude vineyards close to the Dolomites, where we find red and white grapes with names like Nosiola, Manzoni Bianco, Teroldego. And of course, we also get Pinot Grigio on the steep hillsides that present a really different expression compared to their equivalents in the plains and on the valley floors. I absolutely adore Pinot Bianco, Pinot Blanc as a great variety. So my choice is high altitude. And by high altitude, I mean you can really go up to 900 meters above sea level. A high altitude
Mm.
Pinot Blanc with that lovely linear minerality of fresh acidity, finesse, and apple and herb flavors. Delicious. How about you, Cinzia?
Right. So I chose the Puzzone di Moena. So Moena is this ski resort, is an area where I've been there many years ago with my parents when I went skiing. And I remember this cheese because it was delicious, absolutely a top class cheese. So the name Puzzone, puzza in Italiano means is a smell or a stink in reality. In reality, it's not a stinky cheese, but some people might might think it's stinky. But it gets quite strong, the aroma on the nose, fairly strong because the cheese gets rind wash. Like if we think about some French cheeses that they get rind wash on the nose, they get quite pungent. But then at the taste, they get quite round and fruity, so quite sweet, the paste of the cheese. So the puzzona di Moena, which is a DOP, is made of cow's milk and it comes from the Val di Fiemme, which is this area, a beautiful, beautiful area where the cyclists they are not passing too far from it. There are only 7 actually dairies that they can produce the puzzone nowadays, and you can have it in different type of different style. One is the traditional, you can have an aged one, a stagionato, or you can have again one that comes from the malga. In this case, they are not called alpeggi. In that area, they call them the malghe, which is a synonym, if you want, but is the name that they use in Trentino.
Okay, actually, I'm glad you've given us a rind wash cheese. They're some of my favorite cheeses. As you say, in France, there's such a
Yeah.
profusion. Munster from Alsace, one of my favorites is, which is quite strong, is the Marois from Nord-Pas-de-Calais, Livarot,
Yeah, they know.
a
Yeah.
whole range of cheeses. I know as well, Cinzia, you must have been selling some very good English wine wash cheeses. We have
Yes,
a profusion here in the West Country, but one of the best known is, of course, kind of is the English equivalent of puzzone. It's the stinky bishop.
that's it. You're right. The famous thinking bishop made with the perry made from the
That's
bishop
right. Yes, of
pears.
course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I loved it. I loved it.
Boston Perry.
The people in my shop in England didn't really like to serve it because then the smell was just staying in their hands. But it's a
Yeah.
delicious,
Yes.
delicious cheese. Actually,
Yeah.
you're right.
Those rind wash
Yeah,
cheeses really are good.
yeah,
And James, you mentioned a Pinot Bianco, but you also mentioned Pinot Grigio. Pinot Grigio can find its highest expression, I think, in Sud Tirol, in Trentino Sud Tirol.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Really, really fine and concentrated wines, different from the more insipid versions we sometimes encounter. But I think it's also worth noting that this year's Giro is, of course, it has an official wine, and Pinot Grigio is that wine. Pinot Grigio from the region that we'll be traveling to next as the Giro d'Italia continues its relentless journey across the country, because we're heading into the region of Veneto. Actually, it's Pinot Grigio delle Venezia, I think, is the sponsor. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I believe it is. Yep. Yeah, I think you're right.
So that would include the Pinot Grigio from Veneto, Trentino Alto Adige, and also Friuli Venezia
And Friuli
Giulia.
Venezia Giulia as well, which covers that covers the Delle
Again,
Venezia
some
covers all those 3 regions, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's right. There's 3 wonderful regions for wines and for cheeses. And in fact, it's where we're going to now. At State 18, we'll finish at Pieve di Soligo in the province of Treviso. if the Maglia Ciclamino, the jersey awarded to the points leader, usually but not always a powerhouse sprinter, but one who was also agile enough to survive the terrors of the mountains. If this jersey is still up for grabs, which I'm not sure it will be, today perhaps will present an opportunity. For the route, if anything, appears gently downhill, though not without some major bumps along the way. The most notable is the Muro del Cadel Poggio, set within the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the Prosecco wine hills. We're back in favorite territory, James and Cinzia, with lots to choose from for wines and cheeses. Will the victor be popping some Prosecco Canigliano Valdobbiadene Superiore DOCG this evening, James? And what local cheese would accompany your choice?
Well, of course, it's tempting to always reach for the Prosecco Conigliano Valdobbiadene DOCG, but I'm actually going to stick with a simpler Prosecco DOC for this one. I think after a hard day in the saddle, that refreshing slight sweetness and those lovely fruit flavors, especially if I had won the stage or perhaps at Maglia Ciclamina, I might be wanting to spray some of that around as well. That comes from a couple of recent experiences drinking Prosecco DOC. I had it for breakfast not so long ago, and it was absolutely delicious. It gave me a real lift for the rest
Breakfast
of the
wine.
day. So, yeah, very good breakfast wine. And also, I had a hard day changing the light bulb in the car headlight in the hot sun, and I came in and I thought, I know exactly what I want, and that's a glass of Prosecco DOC. So it has a strong emotional resonance with me at the moment, Mark. How about you, Cinzia?
Okay, so Veneto is a very rich region for cheeses. And like I would say, even the north of Italy has got this great variety. But I did choose more than anything is a process of aging, which is recognized nowadays from a national or from the organization. It's called a imbriago pat, which is the aging method of putting cheeses. It could be Asiago. Asiago is another type of cheese. I'm sure that
Mhm.
many people heard about Asiago, or the Montasio, as Mark you mentioned before, which are all Veneto cheeses. But those cheeses they get aged in old wine barrels in the skins, in the leftovers of the wine production. So I don't know if you ever seen them, Mark, around with cheeses that they have this purple color on the rind.
I have, and sometimes even a little bit of the vinace left
That's
on
it, the
the
vinaccia.
rind.
Yeah, it's exactly what they do. So they age those cheeses. So it depends on the type of cheeses, but there is some rules, precise rules to age them, especially in that area around Prosecco. And this method, they just listed them under the name of Imbriago Pat. And so you can have these more aged one, or you have younger one, and they go really, really well with the Prosecco for an aperitif or even for cooking, for example, in risotti. They do make as well an imbriago in the vinace of Prosecco vinace. And therefore they use this cheese to make the risotto, which I think is very interesting.
Oh, that's really interesting, Cinzia. I
Mm.
didn't realize that imbriago was a technique that could be used for any range of cheeses. I thought it was something applied to a specific cheeses. I think I've seen cheeses in a market simply called ubriaco,
Ubriaco,
drunken cheeses, again with the red rind
yeah.
and a bit of the vinace still.
But the Imbriago part is specific for Veneto only. So they
Okay.
registered, if you want, they registered the name as Imbriago, and then there is a series of rules. It's like a
Disciplinare.
disciplinare.
Cinzia, could you remind
Okay.
me that word pat that you're using? Could you remind me what that means?
Yes, is a prodotto agroalimentare tradizionale.
And this is an Italian only designation, not a
Yes,
European,
this is an
as
Italian.
opposed to the DOP or the IGP,
Yes.
which is European. Okay. And James, I'm glad you highlighted the simple Prosecco DOC. I think it's a wine that can be much derided and dismissed, but it can be just such a refreshing, wonderful wine to drink, not just for breakfast, not just when you've been struggling with a car headlamp, but in many occasions when you want a wine that you know is going to satisfy and that's not overly impegnativo, overly challenging, but which really satisfies. And it's a wine that should not by any means be dismissed.
Yeah, I completely agree, Mark. Yep.
Okay, now just 3 stages remain, and we might think that the exhausted riders by now would almost begin to sniff the finish. Every muscle and sinew in their toned bodies must be crying out for rest and relief. But instead, two of the most challenging mountain stages still remain. Will the victor, will the Maglia Rosa be all but decided by now? I have a feeling that may well be the case. But whoever knows in the Giro d'Italia, it's a race that always has unexpected moments and surprises, and anything could happen. Stage 19 tests the legs and the hearts and minds of the rider with no fewer than 5 classified climbs, including the soul destroying Passo Gio in the province of Belluno, which ascends to a dizzying 2,233 meters before plunging down. And after that, there's still 2 more climbs to come. Will today be decisive, James and Cinzia? Whatever the outcome, it's a day for us armchair warriors to relax over a good glass or two and some good mountain cheese. What do you both have in store for us?
Well, I'm not sure about armchair. I'm just waiting for my call up to the pro team. So,
Me
um,
too. Me too.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
I thought
me
you might
too
be.
as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Still
Um,
hasn't come.
we live in hope. So when I'm in the area, first of all, I love Soave, the wine, and the Garganega grape. But I'm going to go for a red, and of course, one thinks of Valpolicella. When I'm in the area, I like to drink Valpolicella or the simple, light, fresh, crunchy red, or a Valpolicella Superiore. I've grown out of love slightly with particularly Amarone after too many tastings where you just have this either young wines that are searingly intense on the palate or big, chunky, older Amarone wines. And that was the case until we had a dinner. And you and I were both there with our dear friend Cynthia Chaplin recently. And she introduced us to the wines of the Talestri sisters, one of whom was there for the dinner. And her Amarone was a revelation, I thought. Light, supple, alive, for want of a better word. Very, very elegant, and none of that muscle and chunkiness that has put me off in the past.
And also, James, I found that it didn't have the dried grapes intensity either. It had such a freshness and an energy. So,
It really did, yeah. So, and that actually got me thinking. And interestingly, some of the best Amarone I've tasted in recent years have come from lady winemakers. So, Talestri, Marinella Camerani, of course, from Corte Sant'Alda, and Maddalena Pasqua di Bisceglie at Musella, who makes a more oxidative style of Amarone. But I'm thinking they're probably my favorite three, and all made by lady winemakers. So, anyway, that's a slight aside. Cinzia, what about cheeses?
Right. So, cheese, we are still in Veneto, but we are more north in the provincia di Belluno. And I did think to choose a very traditional. People from Veneto, they love this cheese, which is a Piave DOP. So we said we talk about Asiago and Montasio, but the Piave is a cheese that basically everyone, whoever had some cows, was produces this Piave, which you can find it in different style. It can be made with semi-skin, full fat, so the disciplinary is quite open, but is a cheese that is considered, if you want, the oldest and the most known. They can use it either in the kitchen, so for as fresh cheese, or otherwise in the most famous traditional dish called formai frit, which is the fried cheese. So it's fried cheese that gets served with some polenta, which is the corn flour dish. I don't know if you ever had, Mark, the
Oh,
polenta.
yes, often. I'm very big fan of polenta.
So do I. But James is not so keen.
I like it, but I can only eat so much of it.
So fried cheese with polenta and krauti, the typical cabbage cooked with the vinegar as well. So, and this is called formai frit made with the piave, which is made with this age, it is more like quello vecchio.
Stagionato. Okay. Would that also be from the Malga, from the high pastures?
Well, you can have as well, you can have the piave fresco, mezzano, vecchio
Like the
selezionatore.
Asiago. Hmm.
Yeah, like the Asiago, like the
Okay.
Dallevo, like Asiago Dallevo, which is the more aged one. In a way,
Okay.
they are similar, but no, don't say that because they will someone will write to me. So no, the Piave DOP is definitely different. When it gets aged, you get this nice, very dark kind yellow color.
Would it even be used for grating?
You can use it for grating as well. Yes, they do. When it gets very aged.
Okay. Well, the penultimate stage now takes us into Friuli Venezia Giulia, the region that is in the high northeast corner of Italy, bordering with the Julian Alps leading to Austria, Slovenia, and around the coast is Croatia. So we're right in the corner of the country. And it's the final chance for any alteration in GC, in general classification, before the mainly processional grand finale on the streets of Rome. Stage 20 has but a single first category climb, Piancavallo, but an historic one that has altered the results of the race on more than one occasion, and which has been won by such cycling legends as Marco Pantani in '98, the year he completed the Giro Tour double. Piancavallo climbs more than 1,100 meters in just 14 and a half kilometers, a grueling ascent by any standard. And if that's not enough, the race organizers are sending the riders up it twice. Who, I wonder, will be the last man standing? Meanwhile, we're stuffing ourselves with yet more wine and cheese, aren't we, James and Cinzia?
We sure are. So I'm looking at my Appellation map of Friuli, Venezia, Giulia. Again, yet another wonderful region for winemaking. The map is complicated in places, not least because there are three appellations that cover the whole region, which are Friuli DOC, Prosecco DOC, and that extends into most of Veneto as well. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the Delle Venezie DOC covers the whole region and extends into Veneto and Trentino too. I'm looking specifically at the Friuli Colli Orientali DOC, which is on the eastern side, approaching the Slovenian border, and in particular the Rossazzo subzone. I haven't had much chance to taste Rossazzo in my time. I don't know about you, Mark. It seems quite hard to get hold of.
It is hard to get hold of, yes.
Yeah, but we're talking about blended wines here, so or typically, so the Friulano grape needs to be 50% minimum. Sauvignon between 20 and 30. Pinot Blanc and Chardonnay need to be 20 to 30% of the blend, and then Ribolla Gialla makes up a final 10, maximum final 10%. These are wonderful, wonderful wines, brilliant mineral, really gorgeous. How about the cheeses, Cinzia?
So, cheeses, I found something very, very unusual in terms of how it's made. It's called asino. So, Mark, you speak a little bit of Italian. You know that asino in Italian is means donkey, but this is
Yes.
asino. So, questo is a very ancient cheese, and it comes from the Mont d'As, which is not too far from again the stage passes, and is a cheese. It can be served in two different styles. The first style is a morbido, is where the cheese, the curd doesn't get cooked at all. So after they add the rennet, they just cut immediately the curd. They don't cook it at all. So you have a fresh curd, and this is morbido. The interesting thing, you can have as well a classico, which basically they cooked the curd. But after they put it into shape, this cheese, then they age it in, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce it correctly because I don't speak Friulano,
No?
but salmueres, which are half barrels basically. Imagine some barrels cut in half, open up, and they fill them with some milk, some cream, some water, and some salt. This solution, they put the cheeses inside and they age them. And this is quite is a unique method if you want. So the cheese comes out quite salty. It hasn't got a rind because when they take it out from the this solution of mixed milk and cream and salt and water, is completely white and quite salty. But the saltiness, I hope that it would be interesting to try with the wine that you
Yes.
choose,
Yeah, I
James.
think it would.
Yeah, that's a really interesting method of making the
Yeah.
cheese. Does it have any sort of fermentation in that liquid? Does it get a strong flavor?
It gets more than anything, it gets a salty flavor.
Hmm.
And apparently, he was very, very appreciated by all the rich families from Venezia and Trieste because it's a cheese that has been produced for centuries.
Right.
So is they said it's quite sapid, which means that it's quite strong. So
Hmm.
maybe even a red wine to pair it, or you reckon?
Schiopettino or a Refosco, maybe.
Un
Yep.
refosco.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, I think a Refosco might work with that. It reminds me of a cheese they also make in Friuli, packing it into little jars, the Formaggio di Franc, where bits that are left over, ends of cheeses, can be packed into a jar, and sometimes grappa's added, and it sort of ferments and gains in strength, and it's pretty pungent. It can be pretty pokey
Yeah,
when you open that jar and dip a spoon or a knife into it. I've had some quite strong. I like strong cheeses.
perfect for cyclists, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Okay. And so eventually all roads lead to Rome. The final tappa of the Giro d'Italia 2026 is a dead flat route that actually starts in the internal city, heads to the coast at Ostia, returns to Rome, and then follows 8 laps of a circuit around the historic monuments of the city, including the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, the Trevi Fountain. The pink cyclamen and blue jerseys will almost certainly be decided by now. But this is still an opportunity, an important opportunity, for a sprinter to take glory with a precious and high profile stage win with all the world watching. Meanwhile, our thoughts turn to eating and drinking. We're in the nation's capital. Will we be eating and drinking like Romans, James and Cinzia?
I bet we are, yeah. So I'm thinking celebration, maybe commiseration for some, but certainly celebration for the stage winner and for the jersey winners and their teams. As ever, on the lookout for those indigenous grapes of a particular region. And I'm heading slightly south of Rome to the wonderful growers cooperative called Cincinato near the town of Cori, quite coastal. And since the 60s, I believe, they've been working to rebuild vineyards of indigenous grapes, which had almost been lost. Now, among those is a grape called Bellone, Bellone, which we sold really, really well in our shop in its still version. But they do also make at Cincinato a bottle fermented, so classic method Bellone, which is absolutely delicious. So it has a nice crisp acidity, spends 36 months on the lees, and has a lovely fruity, slightly minty quality to it, which I think would be a wonderful way to celebrate the final stage, and also
Mm.
spray it around as well on the podium.
Nice.
Cinzia, over to you.
Okay, so Lazio. Lazio, we can really go from some fresh cheeses to quite age. So we can talk about Cacio, which is a general name. Cacio in the region of Toscana, Umbria, and Lazio means cheese, from the Latin caseus. Well, everyone must know cacio e pepe, the famous sauce for the pasta.
Yes.
Yes, the way you grate your pecorino and then you put the water or the pasta and then the pepper and then you just put your simple sauce but so tasty. But I chose for this the last stage the very famous where we all know ricotta, but there is the ricotta Romana DOP. And this is something you need to look on the packaging. If you see the label, there is a design of a ewe because it's made with sheep milk, so ewe's milk. And the ricotta romana has got this fantastic intensity of the ewe's milk. I do love it with some honey as well. If you can find some Italian local honey from Lazio, you can have it on top of it, and maybe as well some nuts. And the ricotta romana, remember, ricotta is not a cheese. It can be considered a cheese because it doesn't come from the first production of the milk. So when they add the rennet and you have the curd, then you produce the cheese. The leftover of a cheese production, so the whey left, it gets recooked, hence the name ricotta. It gets recooked. Sometimes in the ricotta romana, they can add some used milk as well to the whey, and they produce this lovely, we call it cheese, but in reality is a byproduct of the cheese production. And is very, very good for people that they don't want to eat so much fat because it normally is, there is less fat in the ricotta. And I love it. I
Mm.
absolutely love it. As fresh, or you can use it for cooking to make some nice tart or other dishes as well.
Yes, I love ricotta, and I love it when I'm in Italy and we can get that fresh ricotta. But I've not had
Mm.
that ricotta Romano DOP, so I'll look out for that one.
Yes.
James, I've never had a sparkling Bellone. I've had the still wines. I love the grape, but not had that. So that's a really nice choice for the victors on the podium. As we record this, the final outcome of the Giro d'Italia is still all to be played out in the days to come. I shall be closely following the race over these days, and I'm hoping that there will be drama in the high mountains. But whatever the outcome, you've both transported us on our own separate Giro d'Italia, exploring, discovering, tasting fabulous and unexpected wines and cheeses along the way. It's been such a pleasure sharing this with you, and I hope to share some wine and cheese with you both sometime too. And who knows, James, perhaps a cycle ride too.
That sounds
But in
great.
the meantime, grazie mille to you both. I've really enjoyed this.
Grazie a te, Mark.
Grazie, Mark.
Grazie.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Loved every second and every kilometer.
We enjoyed
Thank
it
you.
very much.
We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.